Sitaram, and welcome to the Hindu Perspective. This is a production of SWAHA, the board of SWAHA, in which various aspects of Hinduism and national issues are discussed. I am standing in for Pandit Ishwar Madhu Maharaj and Pandit Jaidat, who is away today also. On our panel today would be our senior Pandits, Pandit Gyandev Prasad, who is a regular presenter on the show, and very specially for the first time, we have Pandit Balram Prasad, the Upa Paramachari, Deputy Spiritual Head of SWAHA. As we begin, I will invite Pandit Balramji to lead us, as is customary in this program, in a prayer. Panditji.
We join in prayer. Om Shri Vigneshwaraya Namah. Om Shri Guru Charan Kamal Bhyo Namah. Om Ai Maha Saraswatyai Namah. Om Uma Maheshwaraya Namah. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvara. Om Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhi-rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Om Shri Vigneshwaraya Namah. Om Shri Saraswati Mata Namam. Bole Shri Gajanan Swami ki jai. Saraswati Mata ki jai. Swaha Mata ki jai.
Thank you very much, Pandit Balram Prasadji. Dear viewers, as we begin our program on this note of prayer, I would like us to reflect. Yesterday, Trinidad and Tobago would have celebrated the 177th year of Indian arrival. Now, in 1845, as we all know, the landscape of Trinidad and Tobago would have changed. Significant changes that many at the time may not have realized would take place hundreds of years later with the introduction of people from the subcontinent of India. Now, coming to the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago were majority Hindus, over 85%, some people of Islamic persuasion, and also a small quantity of Christians. The majority of people who came to Trinidad and Tobago were Hindus. So that in many ways, Indian Arrival Day also signifies or represents the arrival of Hindus in Trinidad and Tobago. So while we speak of Indian Arrival Day from the Hindu perspective, we are going to focus in our program today on the Hindu community, the growth and development of the Hindu community, and how we have negotiated this change coming to this foreign land from Bharat Mata, as it were. Now, when the British decided they needed this additional source of labor to replace slavery, I don't think that the concept in their mind at that time, I might be subject to correction, but I don't see why they would want to spread Hinduism. They were simply concerned about finding new sources of labor. But in all the diaspora countries that exist today, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, Fiji, Mauritius, well, Mauritius was closer to India in any event, but South Africa, throughout the world, wherever people of Indian origin were carried, what they unwittingly did was spread Hinduism. Now, most of the Hindus in the world are concentrated in India. Why? Because Hinduism never really had an active policy of conversion. Hindus never sent out armies to conquer other worlds. Hindus never sent out armies for holy wars. These are the realities of our history. Hindus sent out emissaries of love. Hinduism spread into Indonesia, into Cambodia, in all those Eastern countries because of the power of its philosophy. Recently, I'm sure those of you who have been reading, you would see that Indonesia, although now a majority Islamic state, the most populous Islamic state in the world, they are now uncovering more and more evidence of their Hindu past. But that we can discuss at another time. Today, as we focus on the arrival of Indians in Trinidad and Tobago, our focus is the arrival of Hindus in Trinidad and Tobago in this program and how we were able to develop and grow a community here. One of the fundamental reasons for the growth of Hinduism is the presence of the priesthood. And so in these sequence of programs, from now to the end of June, we shall be discussing various facets of the growth of Hinduism in Trinidad and Tobago and the role of pundits and others and institutions in building the Hindu presence in Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, as we begin our conversation, our discussion on the Hindu presence in Trinidad and Tobago and the role of the pundits, I now wish to invite Pandit Vyandeva Prasadji to make his initial comments and assertions, discussion that he wishes to raise, ideas he wishes to share on the role of the pundits in developing Hinduism from 1845 to today. Panditji.
Thank you, Panditji. At the outset, I want to emphasize a point. This is a point that is very, very liked by most pundits and non-pundits also. That is those who like pundits and those who don't like pundits. Hinduism survived, and it is because of the pundits. Now, the historical perspective is that when the English wanted people who owned the plantations, they did not look for anybody except persons who are able to do such a thing. But they were not stupid either. The English were very bright. And in order to control people, they brought leaders of these people with them. So contrary to what some people think, the leaders of these people who came here, the Hindus, were the pundits. And the British knew for a fact that if the pundits talk to the people, they will listen. If the pundits, if they want to control the people, control the pundit. I give an example. My father's guru came here. He never worked the plantation. He came only to look after the flock and to make sure they were intact. So there are many pundits who came, pundits, Brahman. No, that big discussion will go into afterwards. But there are many people who came just to work the plantation, others who came to control the flock. According to one Indian author, the pundit was the one who kept them together with what we call the Ramayana. Because when evening time comes, after working hard in plantation, they will sit, and it's not a Hindu tradition, but the fact that happened, they will dum, they will smoke the ganja. Now, that's not something we authorize or agree with, but that's because of the situation. So the author who wrote this from India, he said the Ramayana, the ganja, and the Pandit were three things that kept the society together. And because of this, the Pandit was able to control. Now, when a man hears Ramayana about Ram, Sri Ram, the same Ram temple you could build in Ayodhya, the same Ram you hear about so many places. When they hear about these things, they sat down there and they were engrossed. And they became, more, because this is what their customers back in India before they came. And when they use the ganja, I don't know how to introduce that. That's something some hard study, maybe hard to study, but get a consensus on how the ganja is introduced, whether it's from Trinidad or whether it's brought with them. So these three things, the ganja, marijuana, the Pandit, and the Ramayana, were there to keep these laborers intact. So when the white man, as you call it, the English landowners want to control the people, they turn to the Pandit and say, Panditji, look, we have a problem here, you have a problem there. Use your responsibility. And the Pandit loved his flock so much, he don't want to see them suffer. Because if they did anything out of the bounds, obviously they'll be flogged and everything will happen to them. So what happened? The Pandit had a vested interest in seeing that the flock, the Hindus, did what it's supposed to do. So I'll pass it upon Balaram, who may have a little more to speak about on this topic of Pandits and the flock in Trinidad. And I said my father's guru, one who came only as a Pandit, nothing else, never worked the plantation, is a fact. Panditji, Pandit Balaram.
Thank you very much, Pandit. I want to agree with the idea of the pundits and the scripture called Ramayana. But I want to differ on the point of the ganja. We were led to believe ganja is bad, is wrong, is damaging to our people. There's a $1 billion cannabis industry throughout the world, and it's being used for medical purposes. But for some reason, because of the strong tobacco lobby, and I'm glad we're talking about this, today's World No Tobacco Day or something along those lines. So it's good to be reminded about that. So, it was another aspect, another part of the whole Western concept of anything Indian or East Indian is bad. So ganja was bad. Ganja wasn't bad. Misuse of it. It's like saying a car is bad. Saying, whatever it is bad. No, the misuse of it. So that's not so. We need to stop being apologetic about the use of ganja. And I'm not saying I take it, I want it, and I'm encouraging it. I'm saying we need to be careful about the comments that those people made and the action they took to prevent the ganja. Because we know many of those individuals who work very hard. They didn't just smoke ganja for fun, for recreation, maybe yes. But they took it as a form of relaxation, as a form of medication. And it worked for them because they were very, very resilient. They were very, very hardworking. How come they're so hardworking? And they ate very sparingly. They were given little ration on the ship. Not enough nourishment, nutrition. Yet they came and they put their backs to the wheel, as it were, and they toiled and they transformed this land of ours, our country. So I just thought I would say that because I've heard that so many a time, and I'm happy to use this opportunity through this program. It's not a condemnation of what Panagianev said. I am saying simply that the ganja is not wrong. It depends on the use to which you put it. It's like a car, as I said before. So before I go on, I don't know if there's any response to that.
Yeah, funny, just one thing. What you said is correct. From a biological point of view, ganja makes one calm and cool.
Mm-hmm.
Ganja makes one become, I won't say subdued, but become less aggressive. While alcohol does the opposite.
Right.
Alcohol makes you become, from a mouse to a lion, at least try to. But ganja makes you become quiet and cool and calm. And this is the reason why they use it, because it calms them down. They're away from the country, away from the tradition, away from everything. So the ganja, that, as you said, was something positive. And I said in Hinduism, you don't condone it, but it's a fact, as you rightfully mentioned, America, in many countries in the world, it is a drug. That cocaine is used as a drug, not as a drug for medical purposes, not for recreational purposes. So ganja or marijuana can be used. It is used, it is studied, and that brings a lot of benefit to us. And more studies, I agree with you, more studies need to be done and published by our Hindu and Indian doctors and lawyers, and let them know what ganja really does first. Well, if you have a choice, ganja or alcohol, which one you take? Any day is ganja, any day, no alcohol. But alcohol is very prevalent. So we are saying ganja is our tradition, yes. Ganja is in our history, yes. But it was not something negative, it was something positive to keep them calm and cool. Paneji. I'll pass them back to you, Panmay.
Yeah, you see what happened here? We have the alcohol industry, very powerful, all right? The tobacco industry, very powerful, and they can't interfere with their profits. It ties in why they brought our ancestors in the first place, for economic gain, economic prosperity. But they also brought their various cultures and aspects of life. But they didn't expect this part. So therefore, they had to act quickly. And we know how that lobby, the alcohol lobby, the meat lobby, and all these lobbies, they're very powerful. And they will go all out to knock down anything that opposes them and prevent their profitability. So in that context, I see the ganja smoking. And I know people who smoke ganja. And they work very hard, very constructive. I have never seen anyone, from what I know, I could be wrong, pick up a gun, but they didn't have a gun that time, pick up a cutlass or whatever it is and cause any kind of damage. Right now we have everything. And right now the crime is out of control. We have army, police, you name it, Minister of National Security, everybody. I like to tell people wherever I go, when you're a principal, you see the first duty of a principal, safety and security of all on the plant. Panagado, you know that. You are principal too. That's your first duty and responsibility, the safety and security of all on the plant in the school compound. When you're a prime minister, and I'm not knocking go prime, there are many other prime ministers who were here before. When you're a prime minister, your first duty is also the safety and security of the people in the country. And if you're not doing that, then what are you doing? Blaming ganja? That should not be so. So I think we can move on from there.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Pandits. There were three things you mentioned, both of you as senior pundits. One, the use of the recreational drug cannabis or ganja, which, as you know now in Trinidad and Tobago, the whole change is taking place in terms of how it's viewed. The second thing was the role of the pundits, that we needed to focus on more as we move this program forward. I think the issue of ganja use, you're right, it's a matter of societal acceptance. There was a time when you would find that use of ganja was considered acceptable among the elders in our society. But many of them also stopped it, recognizing its deleterious effects long term. Alcohol, on the other hand, has societal acceptance, so much so that even the Indian community now faces a serious problem with alcoholism, which again, we can discuss further, but we wanted to go back, in my view, to the perspective we want to develop here, which is the growth of the Indian community, the Hindu community. So they arrived, they were in the barracks, they were performing these acts that they needed to do, the work that they needed to do. And how did the Hindu community develop as a community? I don't know if Pandit would want to begin having that conversation. Building up temples, community groups, how did it grow?
Sure, thank you very much, Pandit. First of all, I mentioned from a historical point of view, when Hindus came to Trinidad, there were no organizations to look after them. As a matter of fact, because of that, from India, the act called the Sharda Act was used in Trinidad to ensure that people got married. Another historical fact, the Sharda Act of India was used to prevent all kinds of foolishness going on. Because even we, there's nothing to be embarrassed of, we were illegitimate children. Because the Marriage Act, the Hindu Marriage Act was not implemented yet. As a matter of fact, historically speaking, the Muslims got their act first. So the Muslims were able to marry and be legitimate and have legitimate children. While the Hindus, because of, and I don't want to mention a word here without being too negative, infighting. The historical perspective was the Hindus couldn't get together and say, let us get together and get this act done, get this thing done for all people. So from a historical perspective, our own people, and you know, my father, Shankaracharya, he said, maybe Hindus have a curse. We can unite. He said, maybe it came from the time of Krishna Bhagavan. I don't know how true it is or what factual basis there is. There may be. He said, because Hindus, they have everything, except one thing, unity. So that what happened, the Hindus could not get married. Or when they get married, they were illegitimate. We, as a matter of fact, this is why, in my song, joke, I have two good papers. One, 29th of May, one, 6th of June. When I became legitimate, I had next good paper. When I illegitimate, I had next good paper. Things changed. So that's how things went. So the Hindus suffered tremendously because of lack of unity. And I'll not get into it because of the organizations which caused the problems. And over the years, but we'll come to that in a future discussion. Swaha came, and Swaha caused unity and togetherness. But from a historical perspective, what happened is that because of lack of unity, the Hindus began to suffer. And they suffered more because of lack of unity. We'll discuss that more when we come back from the break.
Thank you very much, Panditji. We go to a break and then we shall return with this very interesting conversation. Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m.
You're viewing the Hindu perspective, a program of the board of Swaha. And today we have Pandit Gyandev Prasad and the Upa Paramachar, the deputy spiritual head of Swaha, Pandit Balram Prasad, joining us. I'm Pandit Manidev Prasad, standing in for Pandit Ishwar and also Pandit Jaidat, who are on leave from the program at this point. Now, before the break, Pandit Gyandev was making an important point, which is, in many ways, the Hindu community did not act as a sufficiently strong lobby compared to others. And he attributed it to the possibility that Hindus did not have unity. Now, I want us to consider this for a moment. In India, India has a majority of Hindu people in the world, but people do not vote along Hindu lines. They do not see themselves firstly as Hindu and then citizens, as other communities do. So that I think it's a throwback to that, where so many Hindus around you, being Hindu meant nothing. And when we come into a minority setting, Hindus currently represent, I think at the last year, so it's 18 or 19%. The one before that was 22%. That's something we need to discuss also. But we never seem to be able to get together as a community and attack issues as a community. There are smaller communities that punch way above their weight because of their ability to leverage connections and also ensure that they have a lobby regardless of who is in power. Those are other issues that we can develop as we go forward. But the issue Pandit Gyandev raised, I want to just refer to Pandit Balram for him to develop on it, get his thoughts on it, the issue of Hindu unity over the years coming forward. Pandit Balramji.
That is a very big one. Up to now, it has not happened. It didn't happen then, it's not happening now. There are too many things dividing us. The question is, if you ask anyone right now in this country, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as an Indian, an African, a Christian, a Hindu? How do you see yourself? I'll be shocked at the kind of answers you will get. So we have to find out what is it that is a commonality among our people, all right? In the other races or religion, other people, there's the concept of the religion, one book, one God, one way of worship. Is that so in Hinduism? The variety is the spice of life. But variety in what sense? If they didn't require leadership, and how can it make sense? So that's a very important aspect to look at. Then we have to now leave religion as it were. I'm not saying Hinduism is separating us or whatever. Look at aspects of Hinduism that can bring us together. And I like where I see Hinduism is going. We're now focusing on yoga. Yoga can bring us together, but even those who are propagating yoga say, nah, Hindu thing. Why are they reluctant to say yoga is not a Hindu thing or has Hindu roots and origins? That boggles my mind. You understand? So that's a big area that concerns me. We are refusing to accept and allow others to dictate the pace as to the practices that we have. Right? There are other areas, but I think this one is most important right now. That idea of yoga, meditation. There's now a World Yoga Day. Imagine that. Where all countries on a particular time would engage in the practice of yoga. We should also pick up that and use that as a rallying point. I'm not saying only that, there are many other things, other aspects of the religion we can pick up and use it as a rallying point to get our people together. But it's not happening. Leadership, I am certain about it. Leadership, if leadership gets together and unites, Hindus will unite. I put it this way very bluntly. When Pandits unite, Hindus will unite. Pandits don't unite, Hindus not united.
I take the point, but as we focus on Pandits again, everybody acts and behaves in a particular way based on compulsions and based on their own requirements and their needs. Let's reflect for a moment. I got a text message saying that, same point. Every Pandit does things differently. Every Pandit is like a leader unto himself, and they would be concerned with their flock and nobody else. But we have to go back to the historical context in which Hinduism came. We have no central authority for Hinduism, which allowed Hinduism, in order to destroy Hinduism, you don't have to destroy every single Hindu. So with a diffuse structure, what has happened in India, I mean, every community you go, every village, there are over what? Again, over 1,600 different dialects. There's so much diversity that in every village you go, even how the Pandit does puja will be different. Same as Trinidad. But we have to find the common ground inside of there. Now, the Pandits coming together. Let's analyze the history of the Pandit. The Pandit coming to Trinidad came as an individual. He has no organizational support. For example, the priests of the Catholic Church, they are maintained by the Catholic Church. They may take a personal vow of poverty, nice, but all their needs are met by the church, which is one of the most powerful and rich organizations in the world. Hinduism and Hindu leadership in the form of the Pandits. What has many times people say, what are Pandits doing? But I want to ask a question, if you permit me. What is the community doing for Pandits to ensure Pandits achieve a level of security and safety so that they can in fact preach? Almost all Pandits who are practicing are doing it as a labor of love. They also have needs. And this is something I think we need to analyze as a society going forward. I don't know, Pandit, if you want to develop on this idea further. Initially, the Pandits were all probably on the fields also. They were also doing other jobs, or some were doing Panditai only. How has that changed going forward as we look from the origins to now?
From a historical perspective, what he found is that the Pandit maintained his position in society because he was the one who will guide the persons using the scriptures. He is the one who, according to the modern term, jhare them, see about them and have problems. But when they had problems, because of the language barrier, they couldn't go to anyone else except one who understood their language. So that's one attraction to the Pandit, that when these indented laborers had their problems, who do we turn to? To God, the Ramayana, and to the Pandit who is reading the Ramayana. So the Pandit had that initial role of looking after the flock, and they had no problem looking after him. But what happened, because of, and this is outside influence, to be a Pandit, and that started from long ago, you must be a Brahman. And then the question started, who's a Brahman? Where did Brahmanism come from? So what happened, gradually they started to have inroads into the role of the Pandit. So a Pandit becomes one who can do anything. You could sing, all right, you're a Pandit now. So initially, that was not so. And I think when my dad was in India, he did research on this, that people who came knew one another. People who came knew what caste they were and what tradition they were. So that, I think he mentioned about Ramdeen and so on with my grandfather. So they knew he's a Pandit, he came from Pandit background, so he came here, he's a Pandit. But when over the time, when that initial phase of transmigration, they call it immigration, ended, then what happened? People came and nobody knew who is who. I saw a document sometime recently in Facebook where they had some names of people. I was wondering where they get those names from. I said, those people came in Fatah Razak. I'm sure those were the names. So what happened over the years, the structure of Hinduism, which is the caste system, began to be eroded. And you all know for a fact, check out the history of India. Invaded all the Murtis mash up, temples mash up, all over the world, very same thing. Whatever is Hindu tradition, Hindu custom, mash it up. Murtis, caste system, temple, books, whatever it is. So that was a severe attack upon the Hindus, knowing and unknowingly. And the Hindus themselves, because of what happened, you find, now we have next angle here. The Canadian missionaries, they saw a good opportunity to convert people now. You want to learn, you want to study, you want to get education, come, become one of us, we'll help you. So those of the Hindus who were strong in their faith, and they were surviving and survived. Or how long can a man survive before being drowned? how long? They'll grasp at a straw. So that happens, somebody Hindus who are weak, who didn't have that kind of tradition, who didn't have that kind of background, went away and said, look, you know what? I have to look after myself. And this is where the point Balaram made. We all become individuals. We look at our own self. You don't care about nobody else. So over the years, that happened. The Hindus began to look, you know what happened? I look after myself. I have to see what happened to me. What happened to the next Hindu, that his business. So the unity is not there. And it became worse with the advent of Canadian missionaries and other people who tried to convert the Hindus and Hindus themselves. The Pandit tried their best. Let me give one example I conclude where I passed on to Palmayo again. The first temple built in Trinidad was built in EC. By Sridhar Sadhu. When he asked for land, he said, no, you can't build a temple on the land. He said, okay, you can't build land, I'll build EC. Is that kind of conviction from Hindus? If I can build a temple on the land, I'll build it in EC. And even EC and build a temple. And there are no temples that are national monument, I think. So the Hindus, some had it, some didn't have it. So we have no, that next thing, that Paramita, go back to Krishna Bhagavan and Gita, about nature and so on. So we have to say, because of the weakness of some Hindus and the inability to stand up and be strong and they fight for what they want, and because of the selfishness of some people, things just go haywire. So the Pandit, from being the center of the community, became sidelined, and there's somebody to look for when they want to do a sanskar, a puja, a wedding, or something like that. So he became sidelined, or one who do only those things. I don't hear about you again. You go your way. You see for yourself. When I do a puja, I get Lakshmi, I get Sita. But after that, what happened to you? That is your business. So the Pandit was sidelined eventually, and because of outside influences. Panditji.
No, that's an important point, because in my view, the basic thing is, from what you are saying, Pandit Gyandev, is from being the natural leader of the Hindu community, the Pandits became ritual performers. And they were no longer the de facto heads of religion. And that's an important issue that actually gave rise to the creation of Swaha in the 1990s, when you look at a whole historical thing. If Pandits are just ritual performers and are not deciding on the course of Hinduism really, and their expertise is only to perform puja, blow sank, and do what a leader tells them to do, then where is the leadership in Hinduism? In other religions, the priests are the natural leaders. In Hinduism, in Trinidad, from what you're saying, what appears to have happened is that the Pandits no longer were the de facto heads of religion, but were relegated to the role of ritual performers almost as employees in temples. So somebody could tell them when to do a puja, and somebody could tell them when to leave the temple. This is the history of Hinduism in Trinidad in many ways. I'd like to invite Pandit Balaram to make his inputs as we discuss this historical developments within the Hindu community and the role of the Pandits.
This is a very interesting topic. You have pros and cons on both sides. You have very strong Pandits who held the end together, who kept the flag afloat, flying. And you have those who fell by the wayside and allow whatever to happen, so be it. In this way, we also had leaders who were like that, who were strong, who stood up for the dharma and the culture, and the others who just couldn't care. So the thing is, what should be done? What must be done? This is the question. How are you going to solve this? I am saying we have to look for common ground. I gave you the example of yoga. Now I see, I don't really want to say it, but we see now most Hindus say namaste. Now that also could be a rallying cry. We're all using one common greeting, where some say Bandagi Sahib, some say Sitaram, some say Radhe Sham, some say the other. So we have to start, but who's going to do it? If I remember long ago when I was doing my master's in history, in Indian history, I took it upon myself to invite a number of heads of organizations to come to a meeting. Let's put our minds and our hearts together and come up with solutions. I have the names of those people who said yes and who didn't come. I have the names of those who said they wouldn't come and they ended up coming. And it turned out to be a bust. I'm not ashamed to say it. On the day itself, they had all kinds of excuses. They didn't turn up for that meeting. To do what? To think and to plan. For who? For us, for our children, for our grandchildren. So these are some of the things we're facing. And I don't know, something has to be done, but I can't say what yet. I can't say what. It all depends also on how you see yourself. Remember, I asked, do you see yourself as a Hindu Trinidadian, a Trinidadian Hindu? What do you see yourself as? An Indo-Trinidadian, a Hindu Indo-Trinidadian? Depending on what's your priority. And we know right now in Hinduism, many other organizations have come up and they're doing good work, but they're focusing on culture. So the culture is more attractive and nothing is wrong with the culture. But is it being bastardized? Is it being watered down? Does it have a strong, religious flavor to it? And if that is not so, then we just go in one way, and that's a slippery slope.
But I think one of the things is we have to, you mentioned there, what must be done? I think what has happened in India, we have to look at it. One, they get strong leaders. In India, Hinduism has fallen long, Yadi Shankaracharya. You have all these great leaders, Prabhupada, who came up and brought Hinduism to the West. So we have strong leaders, person who will come there and